Good morning. Welcome to Workforce Skills with John Morse. Another Monday morning out here in Phoenix, Arizona. It is definitely hot out there. Thank God July's almost over. August gets pretty hot out here as well. We really haven't had our monsoon season, so it's a little bit different out here. So I'm waiting for the rain to come, although that brings a little bit of humidity. But today I've got a guest on with me. I have Chasity with me. She works in our office. Hired her a little while ago. I think you've been with us for how long now?
Since July 1st.
Since July 1st, almost a full month now. She is doing data entry for us. We're creating a new program, basically a new CRM program for our company. Everything's going to be based in this one system. And she's got a lot of work in front of her because we're switching stuff from the old system to the new system. But a little bit interesting, I always talk about the second chance movement and how we hire people that have done time in prison or out of rehab or off the streets. And I got a call from a group called Arrowit. I believe they help women only that are out of prison or need help getting jobs. They help you with resumes, job placement, a little bit of that. And I told them, here's what I'm looking for. And they recommended, I think, 3 or 4 people, and you were the best out of those 3 or 4. So you're the winner.
Yeah, yay.
So I love having her on here. She's done a little bit of time. She's shared some of her story with me. But I think what I've seen, especially with my vocational program, the women that go through that, I think it's harder for women than it is men to get a job out there. What has been your perspective? And share a little bit of that.
Yes, so I was discharged January 24th last year. So I've only been out for about a year and a half now. And I spent some time when I first got out, a couple months, just visiting with my daughters, going on a couple planned vacations that we had and spending some time with my best friend. And I came back to Arizona in March, and I'm formerly from Arizona. I was a mortician here for several years before I went inside. So I'm familiar with Phoenix. I thought the way that things were going for me before I went in, which is a 13-year gap, and I thought that maybe, you know what I mean, it was just going to be just as easy to hit the ground running. It's Phoenix, so much opportunity out here. And that was not the case. So I did everything I was supposed to do. I built all my resumes, made all the contacts, I must have applied to, I don't know, about 2,000 different jobs.
Oh, wow.
And, didn't get as many interviews as I would have liked to, but I did do about 20 interviews in the year and a half. And, unfortunately, they just didn't pan out. It was my background or something about my personality they didn't like. I'm not sure. And so a lot of opportunities were shut down. The biggest one that is significant to me is a position that they hired me for, data analyst and data entry. For full-time remote, and it was going to be $72 a year. I thought, man, that's a game changer. That's a life changer, right?
Winning right there.
Winning, right. And I signed the offer letter, and I sat on that offer letter for about 2 weeks. 2 days before I was supposed to start that job, they called and rescinded the offer. And I was devastated. I just thought, man, I'm never gonna get back up there again. And the coding program, the last mile coding program that I went through while I was inside, one of my reentry coach, who was actually a former student of mine, she got a hold of Arrowit and Jessica, the program out here, because mostly they were dealing with Indiana, Oklahoma. There was not a lot on the west side besides California for through the program. And so she worked really hard to just find me a connection. And she sent me Jessica's number, Arrowit, and I contacted Jessica. It was less than an 18-hour gap between sending her my resumes and getting the phone call from you and doing the interview and landing the job. And it was, I said that it just has to be, you know what I mean? It just blew my mind. That
perfect
it
timing.
was perfect timing.
Now, you said you learned how to code and do your computer stuff while you were locked up. How long were you locked up?
13 years.
Okay, so that's quite a bit of time.
Yes.
So learning all that, were you able to use those skills while being locked up for anything? What was that journey like for you?
Well, that was learning to full stack develop was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. So many technologies and languages at one time. It's literally like trying to learn Spanish and German and Chinese all at the same time to build one program, to build a website. And it changed my life because once I completed the program, they asked me to stay on as the TA there. And then, so I went on to teach several classes, several cohorts and students. And
you were still incarcerated?
I was still incarcerated.
Okay.
And we were doing that on a closed intranet system. So we did not have internet. We were using, everything that we were using was a mock. So everything was replica. We didn't actually have access to anything. We could only use what the program put in the system for us to use. So not being able to go on YouTube, do DIYs, like full research to learn how to develop, you really had to hone your skills in your brain to think logically, to think how a computer would need it to be set up in order to go step by step. You can tell somebody to put on a shoe, but when we're talking about directions for a programs for a computer, you have to be specific. So you would have to tell them, pick the shoe up off the ground, widen the hole in the shoe, slide your foot in toe first. Like it's literally a step-by-step process. And being there for being a TA with the program for about 4.5 years, really taught me a lot on how to teach other people. First of all, I had become teachable because when you're independent, you try to learn everything on your own and taking direction, taking feedback. That's hard for somebody who's already thinks they have everything going on, right? Nobody ever has everything going on. So you have to be teachable first. So you have to be open to somebody critiquing your work, giving you the feedback. And then in order to teach that, you have to be as teachable as your students are. And you become a better teacher doing that. And so
it's interesting. From the time we've met and what you've done so far, getting to know you, you've mentioned over the last year and a half, you've already talked about it's a struggle. You put in a lot of resumes. What kind of work were you doing in the last year and a half until you found us and we connected? Or was it mostly manual labor? Was it what was going?
Hospitality. I was using I had a total of 5 temp agency apps that I was using. And every day I would have to wake up, look on the apps, see what jobs were available for that day, and then book those jobs. And sometimes you didn't get picked for those jobs. So you'd have to keep going. And so it's a grind. It's a grind every day. And that's a struggle, not because it's not stable. And
did it get you down and depressed? I mean, or how did you keep yourself motivated to keep going? What drove you to continue?
The motivation was that I just knew there was something out there for me. Like I was supposed to be somewhere. Like it couldn't have been all this struggle for no reason, right? I knew what I wanted to do. I knew what I wanted to be involved with, and it just and I just knew I couldn't quit. Besides, I have 2 grown daughters. I have a daughter who's had just finished college, and right before I got out, and she wanted to get an apartment. She wanted to be on her own outside of the dorm room, outside of my parents' house, and she's my biggest motivation. Well, both of my girls are, but her just starting her life and knowing that I can't let her struggle financially. So I have to grind every day. I have to get that monthly, the portion that I need to give her monthly. So I couldn't stop.
Yeah. I know we've talked before just one-on-one, and I know one of your problems that you've had in the past was feeling like you're judged all the time. And it sounds like that might have been what happened with some of those resumes you turned in. And because of your background, um, one thing that I pride myself in this company is everybody here comes from the same background.
Right.
So we're all equals here. No one's judging you. And I hope you don't feel judged here, and you feel comfortable, I would assume, right?
Yes. Yes. I feel very comfortable.
How has that changed? I mean, you've only been here a month, but how has that changed your attitude, your mentality, how you're going through? Because that's got to weigh heavy on you over a year and a half, feeling like everybody's looking at you, everybody's judging you. And is that thought process, is that weight coming off now?
It is.
Is it making you feel more comfortable in not just at work, but out in general public now? Has it changed?
So I met somebody shortly after I got out, and they were talking to me about going back into the workforce, and they told me, "Don't tell anybody ever that you've been to prison." And I was like, that's kind of a hard thing to do with 13 years inside, is to not tell anybody. And I tried that. I tried that for a while on a couple of interviews. And what happens is that comes back and slaps you in the face, because people are going to find out.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't take but a Google search sometimes to get the information off of somebody,
Yeah.
or on somebody. So, I thought, I can't do that. I've got to be somewhere where I can be okay with them knowing my past, and me working through my past issues to develop a better future. I needed to be stable. In order to be able, you must be stable first. And
yeah, I know one thing we do, we've got a lot of contractors we work with, and I know New Freedom's got me connected with a couple different groups that they believe in second chances. It's businesses. I know there's one group I just signed up to be a part of it, I think 2 months ago. Really nothing's happened of it. Hopefully they'll have a meeting of these businesses, because I want to meet these other business owners. And it's not just construction. It's business owners, it's companies that do hire for second chance. And there needs to be more out there. There needs to be more people out there that need to realize it's interesting, because the statistics are that 33% of Americans have been arrested.
right.
That's a pretty high number.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean they've been incarcerated. They've been arrested. They haven't done prison time. But that tells you that if that's 33%, that's a very high number. That means 1 in 3 people have been arrested before.
Have dealt with the justice system.
They have. And it's just, I think we're all just one split decision away from making the wrong decision and getting caught. How many times have we done something that we should have gotten in trouble for, but nobody knows, and you could have been arrested 10 more times.
Right.
And I think so if it's 33% that's been arrested, I guarantee you it's at least 60% that should have been arrested at one time or another for doing something stupid.
Right.
Especially as teenagers and kids. I mean, we're idiots as young people, I think, in my opinion. But I'm glad that weight is coming off you. I see you happy around here. You're always getting involved in everything. You're helping everybody. I really appreciate it, because we have Josh, who's behind the scenes, that does the podcast and he's our CTO here, and you were kind of hired to help him out. And it's good to see it taking some of the load off of him. And I find myself more and more, hey, Chasity, I need help on my computer. Hey, I need help with this, instead of always going to Josh. So it's nice to have you intermingling with us and becoming part of the family. And we are a family here.
Right.
This is the PHP family. We love what we do. We love the people we help. And I'm really excited that I have the opportunity now to go speak at a women's facility for New Freedom that they have. It's just opened up in the last year. We're going to be there this next Monday, and you're coming with me. I invited Jade, who works for me as well. She's going to be there. And it's going to be a great experience to go talk to all these women that are coming out of the same situation you were in.
Right.
It's to let them know that it is going to be tough. I personally believe it is tougher on the women than it is the men. The men they can get out there, they can get a job, they can do manual labor. you're talking about how you did all this temp stuff. I'm sure some of that was probably manual labor you had to do.
Yeah. A few warehouses and such and things I didn't want to do, but
Yeah, but you did what you had to
That's
to
right.
survive. You found that inner drive, that inner grind, that beast mode, I call it, that
Mhm.
pushed you to keep going.
Yeah.
And you weren't about to quit. You weren't about to go back. And prior to that one time getting in trouble, you probably never got in trouble before that, really.
We talk about when we were kids, and so I did have a couple juvenile incidents, but those records were sealed, and I was very young. I graduated high school at 16. I graduated college at 18. I had a baby in between that. I basically been on my own since I was 15, and it was the pregnancy with my first daughter that I knew something had to change. And I went to college, right after having her, and got my degree, and everything was so good for so many years. I was just building up my career, building up my career. At one point, I'd bought a house in El Mirage, and I was making 100 grand a year. My girls had everything they wanted, and in the blink of an eye, it just things change. Things can change. One decision, one decision. And I ended up in Oklahoma, and then ended up in prison for 13 years in Oklahoma off of one decision.
How has being in prison changed your perspective on life in general? I mean, it's got to be a shell shock. I mean, and you don't have to go into details of what you're arrested for, but
Right.
I mean, 13 years is a long time.
13 years is a long time.
Christ, it scared the crap out of you. It's not what you expected.
Well, and when I say that I was lucky going in and blessed while I was in there. And the luck came from meeting two girls while I was in county there that had been to the prison I was going to before. So they already had connections on the yard. So I was lucky in the sense that I got to go with these two girls who already knew people there and knew the yard and knew, the do's and don'ts, because there's a lot of written rules, and then there's a lot of
The unwritten
rules.
Yes.
And that's for staff and the inmates as well. We both they have their rules, we have our rules, and coming from a corporate world, because I worked for a corporation, and then going into the black market side of things was very mind-blowing.
Shell shock.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A big shell shock. I couldn't even talk about my personal life and my past in my career that I was in for, I don't know, a good 5 years. When people would ask me, I'd just break into tears. I couldn't do it. And eventually you work through those issues, and then you start talking more. And the biggest thing that really blew my mind and opened my eyes up was how many undereducated, underskilled women that there were. Women who never had mothers, who never was taught how to clean properly or bathe properly, or just no skills at all besides,
I think that's the same with the men too. I've seen that, and I think that's where with our vocational program, when I originally wrote the curriculum in the beginning, there's a class on hygiene. And
Right.
you would think, why are you teaching grown men hygiene?
Right.
And it's funny, a lot of stuff that we talk about in class and that we teach, it's mostly common sense. But common sense isn't common anymore. And it's amazing how many people have grown up without a father, or without a mother, or on the streets, or with parents who were in addiction or alcohol, or they were already involved in crime and criminal activity. And so it became just a way of life for them. Some of them have never even gone to school in their lives. It just, it was hard for me to understand that and see that part. But as I'm writing the curriculum, as we teach these classes, one simple thing we do is we talk about budgeting, and it's trying to teach people how to budget. No one's ever showed them how to balance a checkbook.
Right.
They understand money because some of them sold drugs, and they They can tell you how much stuff costs, and they're really good at math if they can figure it out. But then when you get down to the details, they don't understand interest rates or stocks and bonds and credit cards, and it's a whole new world. And so we get back to the basics on this. And so we have to, not everybody going in there is going to be educated like you.
Right.
It's a rarity from what I've seen, but then there's some hidden gems in there.
Oh, so
I mean, there's men and women coming out of these programs that they just need a chance, and they're going to excel from there. And they're going to their whole life is going to start to change after going through one of our vocational classes, or going through the 90-day program at New Freedom, or even be able to learn coding and the computer stuff that you guys had the opportunity to learn while being incarcerated.
Right.
So that's a huge advantage. You mentioned the group that came in that brought that program. What was the name of that
The
again?
Last Mile.
The Last Mile. Is that something they strictly focus on, or what are they all about?
Yeah, they focus mostly on technology. They have a couple of programs. The program that was brought to us was just the coding. But they do audio and visual. They do business management. And it started in California. So they have other opportunities in different states. But I was in Oklahoma, and this was the first time the program was coming into Oklahoma. We were the first prison for them to come into. And so I was the inaugural class. I was one of the first students for this brand new program there. And nobody had any idea what was going to happen. The facilitator was a former unit manager on the yard, and he came over to be our facilitator in the classroom. Now, not every facilitator is a developer, right? Some are just glorified babysitters. They're there to make sure we're not doing something we're not supposed to. Now, Mr. Griff, he was a unit manager, so he had some background that he was working in building and going to school for, but it was not full stack development the way that we were learning it. So he went through the program like one of us, and he learned how to program along with us. And I always tried to stay. And the biggest thing was the reason I always try to stay about 2 weeks ahead of all of the rest of the students in the classroom. And the reason was because when I got there, when I got into the class, and 99% of this classroom had never gone to school before. Most of them earned their GED while they were inside. They didn't have an idea how to research or how to really grind on finding an answer to a problem. And so I said to myself, and really it's a mother's heart, right? To see all these young girls not having any skills or education or training of anything, to be like, I can't just let these girls sit here and know nothing. You know what I mean? There has to be somebody for them to go to. And I think that being a teacher really stuck with me because of my mother's heart. Like, I can't watch a young girl struggle like that when I have something I can give them, and they can grow.
So this was the very first program they ever ran anywhere in a prison. Now,
well, just in the Oklahoma prisons.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
they were set up in Oklahoma, in
other states,
California, Indiana. Yeah.
Okay. So when you left there, was there somebody else taking over the class? Was it going to continue, or once you got out of prison, did the class just stop? What happened?
Well, and the reason why I gave up my position as a TA there was because one of the students was graduating and she wanted to become a TA.
Okay.
And there was limited space for that. And I had already been doing it for several years, and I thought, how else is somebody gonna know what I know if they don't do what I did?
Yeah, let them have.
I cannot sit in this seat, you know, and in my conscience be okay with just remaining there and not letting this person grow as well.
Gotcha. You've come a long way. You really have. And I love listening to you speak about this in your story. If you had a message to give to other women out there that have maybe come out of prison, that are struggling, don't know what to do, what would that message be to give them hope and understanding that they can make it? There is a chance out there.
Oh, yeah, and the message is don't stop.
Okay.
Don't stop. You already know within yourself that you cannot stop. When you stop, that's when waters become dangerous for you. So you have a focus, you know what you want, and you gotta get up and you have to grind for it every day. It is a beast mode.
Yeah.
It is. It is. And there is a place for you there, and to keep reaching out to other programs. Had I not found Arrowit through asking my reentry coach for the last mile to see if there was somebody else, is there anybody who has second chance programs in my area, and she put in the footwork for that, so you just have to you have to ask. You can't stop looking, and you can't stop trying.
Yeah.
Chastity,
I think you hit the nail on the head when you said you just got to keep going, keep grinding. There's two kinds of people out there. There's the kind of people that wake up, look at their phone or their alarm clock. They look at the time, they think, okay, it's time to get up. They don't wait on the alarm. Then there's the other type that the alarm goes off and they hit snooze, 5 more minutes, 10 more minutes. The people that don't need the alarm, the people that the alarm goes off and they're up, they're ready to go. Let's do it. Let's grind. This is beast mode. We're going. Those are the ones that are going to make it. It's the ones that, and not saying the others aren't going to make it, but those are the people I'm looking for. I'm looking for the ones that have that grind, that keep pushing and pushing, and they don't take no for an answer.
Right.
They're going to find a way to make it work. And I think that's pretty much our whole company. The ones that come on board with us, that they're the ones that hit the snooze button or they show up late. I mean, they eventually end up out the door. It always happens. And they aren't the ones that get promoted, keep moving up, make more money. I love your drive. I love your story. I love everything you talk about. It's for you people out there, for men and women. There's hope for you out there. There is a place. There's programs. You just got to find the right place. If you are in need of help, you don't know where to turn, especially if you're in the Phoenix area, reach out to us. We're going to get you in the right program. We're going to direct you towards the right places. We have so many community partners that I work with between St. Joseph the Worker, New Freedom, Arrowit. There's just so many out there that they're going to help you find a job. They're going to help you get to the interviews. There is hope. You can't come out of prison and think, who's going to hire me? Where am I going to live? We've solved that problem. That's fixed. There is programs out there for you right now. You just got to get there. You got to have that beast mode. You've got to have that grind. When the alarm goes off, you're up, you're ready to go, you're moving. You can't hit snooze. You just got to go. And don't tell me there's not enough time in the day. If that's the case, then wake up 30 minutes early and make the time. You've got to make it happen for yourself. That's just, it's a mentality. You've got to rewire whatever's upstairs in your head and make it work. Whatever was happening before didn't work. You have to change your mindset. Chastity, I really want to thank you for being on here. That's been awesome sitting here talking to you. I always have the guys on here because that's mostly who we hire. And it's been amazing having you and a couple of the other girls that work for us. I need to start having more of the women on here to share their stories, to get that message out there. So thank you very much for being on here with me. Guys, I appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe and stay hungry out there.